What was Mesopotamia?
This ancient region lay between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. From contemporary southern Turkey to the Persian Gulf. Mesopotamia was the home, at one time or another, to such civilizations as Babylonia, Assyria, and Sumer.
Why is every map distorted?
No map is completely accurate because it is impossible to accurately represent the curved surface of the Earth on a flat piece of paper. A map of a small area usually has less distortion because there is only a slight curve of the Earth to contend with. A map of a large area, such as maps of continents or the world, are significantly distorted because the curvature of the Earth over such a large area is extreme.
How do farmers water their crops?
The process of artificially watering crops is called irrigation. In some areas of the world, agriculture can rely on rainfall for all its water needs. In drier areas, usually those receiving less than 20 inches, 51 centimeters of rainfall per year, irrigation is required. Water is pumped from aquifers or delivered via an aqueduct to the fields where it flows through small channels between plants, or is sprayed through sprinklers. In very water-conservative regions such as Israel, water is scientifically dripped onto plants, thereby providing the exact amount of water necessary.
Who owns the Panama Canal?
In 1903, the U.S.-backed revolutionaries in Western Colombia revolted and created the independent country of Panama, which was immediately recognized by the United States. The newly independent Panama gave the United States use of a 10-mile, 16-kilometer wide strip of land across the Isthmus of Panama, where the United States built the Panama Canal. The United States maintained control of the Panama Canal and its surrounding land, called the Canal Zone, until 1999, when a 1977 agreement between the United States and Panama officially took effect and turned the canal over to the Central American nation.
How much does a gallon of water weigh?
Water is quite a heavy substance. 1 gallon of water at room temperature weighs about 8.33 pounds, 3.78 kilograms.
What is the oldest continually occupied city in the United States?
St. Augustine, Florida, was founded in 1565 by Spanish explorer Pedro Menéndez de Aviles. St. Augustine is located on Florida's eastern, Atlantic coast and now has a population of approximately 12,000. It is not only the oldest continually occupied city in the United States, but also in all of North America.
In which direction do ships sail through the Panama Canal?
Though you would expect them to travel east from the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean when sailing through the Panama Canal, ships actually travel northwest, since the Isthmus of Panama lies parallel to the equator. The canal does not lie east-west but rather northwest-southeast.
What were the earliest maps?
There are many examples demonstrating that humanity has been interested in its surroundings since the beginning of recorded history. In fact, written on the walls of caves in Lascaux, France, are three dots indicating the brightest stars in the sky, which are estimated to have been drawn around 14,000 BCE. Neolithic wall paintings found in Çatalhöyük, Turkey, show an early city plan from around 7500 BCE.
How old are glaciers?
Glaciers present today were created during the last stage of glaciation, the Pleistocene epoch, which lasted from 1.6 million years ago to about 10,000 years ago.
What are recycled rocks?
Metamorphic rocks are recycled rocks. Metamorphic rocks are rocks that had a prior existence as sedimentary, igneous, or even another metamorphic rock. Underground heat and pressure metamorphose one type of rock into another, creating a metamorphic, or recycled rock.
Who was at sea the Iceman?
In 1991, two German tourists were hiking in the Itzal Alps, on the Italian side of the border between Italy and Austria, when they happened upon what appeared to be a corpse buried beneath the ice. Astounded, they alerted authorities. It was found that Ötzi, as the body was named, was a 45-year-old traveler himself who was more than 5,300 years old. It was likely he faced what investigators believe was a violent death. On his body were more than 50 tattoos, jewelry, and weapons, all of which gave researchers clues into the lives of our Copper Age ancestors.
What is the largest office building in the world?
The United States is home to the largest office building in the world, the Pentagon, which has 3.7 million square feet, 343,730 square meters, of space under its roof. The Pentagon is home to the country's Department of Defense.
Which country is the top exporter of goods and services?
Germany exports $1.113 trillion in goods and services. It is followed by the United States, with $1.024 trillion, and China, with $974 billion.
When was the Second Agricultural Revolution?
The Second Agricultural Revolution occurred in the 17th century. During this time, production and distribution of agricultural products were improved through machinery, vehicles, and tools, which allowed more people to move away from the farm and into the cities. This mass migration from rural areas to urban areas coincided with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
What language is spoken in the Maldives?
Dhivhi, an Indo-Aryan language, is spoken by the 300,000 inhabitants of the Maldives.
When was the first watch made?
In the early 16th century. German locksmith Peter Kenline began to produce portable clocks called Nuremberg eggs. Advances in later centuries led to timepieces that could be worn on the wrist.
Which continent has the highest average elevation?
The average elevation of Antarctica, approximately 8,000 feet. 2,438 meters, is higher than that of any other continent. The highest point in Antarctica is Vinson Massif, with an elevation of 16,860 feet, 5,139 meters.
What is a drainage basin?
The area that includes all of the tributaries for an individual stream or river is its drainage basin. For example, the drainage basin for the St. Lawrence River includes the area surrounding the Great Lakes. Rivers such as the Platte, which has its own drainage basin, flow into the Missouri, and the Missouri flows into the Mississippi. The combined area drained by the Platte, the Missouri, the Mississippi, and all other Mississippi River tributaries combined create the third largest drainage basin in the world. The Amazon has the largest drainage basin of any river, the Congo has the second largest.
What are nomads?
Nomads are tribes that migrate in a seasonal circuit over a large region. Though nomadic people often build temporary homes, they consider migratory life within their tribe to be home. Nomadic tribes are located in marginal areas around the world, from the Sahara Desert to northern Siberia. The nomadic way of life is threatened because of general cultural prejudice against unsettled peoples.
When was the first freeway built in the United States?
The first freeway, lacking tolls and having limited access in the United States, was the Arroyo Seco Freeway, connecting Pasadena and downtown Los Angeles. It opened in 1940 and is now the Pasadena Freeway, Highway 110.
Which member of the United Nations could not serve on the Security Council?
In order to sit on one of the 4 rotating spots on the 9-member Security Council, a member of the United Nations must also be a member of one of 5 regional groups. Israel was not eligible until 2000 because of its hostile relations with Arab nations.
What is the jet stream?
The jet stream is a band of swiftly moving air located high in the atmosphere. The jet stream meanders across the troposphere and stratosphere, up to 30 miles 48 kilometers high, and affects the movement of storms and air masses closer to the ground.
Which countries are surrounded entirely by landlocked countries?
The 2 countries surrounded entirely by landlocked countries are Uzbekistan and Liechtenstein. Uzbekistan is surrounded by the landlocked countries of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and Turkmenistan. Liechtenstein is bordered by Switzerland and Austria, neither of which have access to the ocean.
Which comes first, latitude or longitude?
Latitude is written before longitude. Latitude is written with a number, followed by either north or south depending on whether it is located north or south of the equator. Longitude is written with a number, followed by either east or west, depending on whether it is located east or west of the prime meridian.
What nationalities were the 9/11's terrorists?
Out of the 19 terrorists who participated in the 9/11 attacks, 15 of them were from Saudi Arabia. 2 were from the United Arab Emirates, 1 was from Yemen, and 1 was from Morocco.
How are different types of climates classified?
The German climatologist Olademir Koppen developed a climate classification system that is still used today, albeit with some modifications. He classified climates into 6 categories: tropical humid, dry, mid-latitude, severe mid-latitude, polar, and highland. He also created subcategories for 5 of these classifications. His climate map is often found in geography texts and atlases.
Is the Earth a perfect sphere?
No, the Earth is a bit wider than it is high. The shape is often called a geoid, Earth-like, or an ellipsoid. The rotation of the Earth causes a slight bulge towards the equator. The circumference of the Earth at the equator is 24,901.55 miles, 40,066.59 kilometers, which is about 41 miles. 66 kilometers, greater than the circumference through the poles, 24,859.82 miles, 40,000 kilometers. If you were standing on the moon, looking back home, it would be virtually impossible to see the bulge, and the Earth would appear to be a perfect sphere, which it practically is.
Who won the Cold War?
The stalemate of the Cold War effectively ended when the people and governments of the former Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc countries decided that they needed a major change in the way in which they organized their government, societies, and economies. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 was only one indicator of the significance of this trend. Popular demonstrations and changes took place in all parts of the former USSR and Eastern Europe, leading inexorably to the downfall of the Soviet Union and its control of satellite states.
Which religions came to be practiced first?
Before the advent of Judaism, many earlier religions were practiced, including animism, which is the worship of nature and natural phenomena like fire, wind, water, and earth. Judaism came into practice around 5000 BCE, followed by Zoroastrianism in 1000 BCE. Christianity in 30 CE and Islam in 600 CE.
What is balkanization?
Balkanization is taken to mean the fragmentation of a country into ethnic, language, or cultural divisions by territory. It is what happened to Yugoslavia, a former country in the Balkans that disintegrated into different territories and ultimately countries. These new nations engaged in war with each other, practicing forced deportations of ethnic groups and mass killings of unwanted ethnic group members.
What is the world's southernmost city?
Ushuaia, in southern Argentina, is the world's southernmost city. Ushuaia sits on Tierra del Fuego Island, south of the Strait of Magellan.
Which state has the most lakes?
Though Minnesota is known for its 10,000 lakes. The slogan on its license plates, "It is not the state with the most lakes." Neighboring Wisconsin has even more, about 14,000 lakes. But Alaska is the definite winner, with over 3 million lakes.
What is the Strait of Magellan?
Ferdinand Magellan discovered the strait that bears his name. In 1520 during his voyage that circumnavigated the earth. Magellan used the strait as a shortcut around the southern tip of South America. The waters of the Strait of Magellan are violent and surrounded by dangerous rocks.
What is the most common street name in the United States?
It's not Main Street. Second, Third, First, and Fourth Streets are the most common, followed by Park, Fifth, and Main.
Which river touches more countries than any other?
The Danube River, which begins in Germany, passes through or borders 10 countries in Europe. More than any other river in the world. On its journey, the Danube River encounters Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Serbia and Montenegro, Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Ukraine.
What are fossil fuels?
Underground fuels such as natural gas, oil, and coal are all known as fossil fuels because they are encased in rocks, just like fossils. It takes millions of years of compression and the building up of dead plants and animals to create these fuels.
Does radiation from a nuclear plant stop at the 10-mile, 16-kilometer zone?
American nuclear power plants are required to create emergency planning zones within a 10-mile, 16-kilometer radius surrounding their plants. These imaginary 10-mile lines are not walls that hold back the effects of radiation, but simply a distance determined by emergency planners. In the event of an accident, the residents of the 10-mile, 16-kilometer zone might not need to be evacuated but could be advised to remain indoors with their windows closed. Nuclear plants also establish smaller zones of 2 and 5 miles, 3 to 8 kilometers, surrounding the plants, within which the risk of radiation exposure is much greater.
Which countries have the fewest neighbors?
All island nations, such as Australia, New Zealand, Madagascar, etc., have no neighbors. Haiti, Dominican Republic, Papua New Guinea, Ireland, UK, and many others are island nations that share an island.
When was the Gregorian calendar adopted in the United States?
Though Catholic countries switched to the Gregorian calendar in the 16th century, Protestant countries, such as England and its colonies, refused to switch from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar at that time. It wasn't until 1752 that Britain and its colonies, including the colonies that soon thereafter became the United States, switched to the Gregorian calendar. By that time, there was an 11-day difference in time, so September 3, 1752, became September 14, 1752.
How long are the Rockies?
The Rocky Mountains, Rockies, extend over 2,000 miles, 3,200 kilometers. From the Yukon Territory in Canada to Arizona and New Mexico in the southern United States.
What is a rain shadow?
When the moisture in the air is squeezed out by orographic precipitation, there's not much left for the other side of the mountains. The dry side of the mountain experiences a rain shadow effect because they are in the shadow of the rain.
Where are the Leeward Islands?
The Leeward Islands are also located in the Caribbean and are less exposed to the northeasterlies. Because these islands are lee, or away from the wind, they were named the Leeward Islands. The Leeward Islands include Dominica, Guadeloupe, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, and the Virgin Islands.
What is an epicenter?
An epicenter is the point on the Earth's surface that is directly above the hypocenter, or point where earthquakes actually occur. Earthquakes do not usually occur at the surface of the Earth but at some depth below the surface.
How many airports are there in the United States?
There are approximately 19,379 airports in the United States, including 5,233 that are designated for public use.
How wide is a degree of latitude?
Though there are only about a dozen lines of latitude shown on most globes and world maps, the Earth is actually divided into 180 lines of latitude. The distance between each line of latitude is called a degree. Each degree is an equal distance apart, at 69 miles, 111 kilometers.
Which Middle Eastern country currently has the longest ruling leader?
Hosni Mubarak has been the head of state of Egypt since 1981.
Which country lies completely within South Africa?
The tiny country of Lesotho, which gained independence from the British in 1966, is completely surrounded by South Africa. Nearly 40% of the male workers migrate to South Africa for employment.
How many people in the world are classified as urban dwellers?
%48 of the world, approximately 3 billion people, live in urban areas today. Another 52%, or 3.3 billion people, live in rural areas.
How have satellites changed map making?
Satellite images, which are accurate photographs of the Earth's surface, allow cartographers to precisely determine the location of roads, cities, rivers, and other features on the Earth. These images help cartographers create maps that are more accurate than ever before. Since the Earth is a dynamic and ever-changing place, satellite images are great tools that allow cartographers to stay up to date.
What is a tony?
A dhoni is a traditional wooden Maldivian fishing boat.
Why was computing longitude so difficult?
It wasn't until the 16th century that clocks were fabricated in such a way that they could accurately tell time both on land and at sea. The only way of determining how far east or west one could go is by plotting the stars in two locations and recording the exact time in both locations simultaneously, and then recording the time and position at the destination. As clocks became more accurate, the ability to measure speed and distance became possible.
What are tornadoes?
Tornadoes are very powerful, yet tiny storms that have destructive winds capable of leveling buildings and other structures. Winds in a tornado form a dark gray column of air, with the center of the tornado acting like a vacuum, picking up objects and moving them along the storm's path. Tornadoes can last from a few minutes to an hour.
What is the largest airport in the world?
In terms of floor area, China's Beijing Capital International Airport has over 10.6 million square feet. 986,000 square meters of space.
Where was the first shopping mall in the United States?
In 1922, Country Club District opened in the suburbs of Kansas City, Kansas, and was the first shopping mall in the country.
What are continents?
Continents are the 6 or 7 large land masses on the planet. If you count 7 continents, these include Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, Antarctica, North America, and South America. Some geographers refer to 6 continents by combining Europe and Asia as Eurasia, due to the fact that it is one large tectonic plate and land mass. So whether you count Europe and Asia one continent or two, divided at the Ural Mountains in western Russia, is up to the individual. Australia is the only continent that is its own country.
Why did the Soviet Union invade Afghanistan in 1979?
The Soviet Union sent troops to Afghanistan in 1979 because it wanted to come to the aid of its ally, the Parcham faction, which was more moderate in its outlook toward moving the country towards communism. The Parchame faction had signed a treaty of friendship and cooperation with the USSR the previous year. The United States began to fund the Mujahideen resistance, who were opposed to both the Afghan government and the Soviet occupation. These same Mujahideen would later form the ideological core of the people who masterminded the attack on the World Trade Center in 2001. Between 600,000 and 2 million Afghanis were killed during the war, which lasted until 1989. Of the 600,000 Soviet troops who served in Afghanistan, 14,453 lost their lives and more than 469,000 became sick or were wounded. More than 5 million Afghanis were displaced and fled to Pakistan. Another 2 million Afghanis were displaced within their own country, seeking shelter from the violence of the war and the factional fighting that ensued.
Will another large asteroid strike the Earth?
Yes, asteroids have struck the Earth in the past and are likely to strike again in the future. Small asteroids strike the planet about every 1,000 to 200,000 years. Large asteroids are much less likely to threaten the planet. They strike only about 3 times every million years. Huge asteroids, such as the one that may have killed dinosaur species, are even less frequent.
Where was the first self-service gas station?
In the automobile city of Los Angeles, George Urich opened the first self-service station in 1947.
Where is the Kalahari Desert?
The Kalahari Desert covers much of Botswana and Namibia. The Kalahari Desert is one of the largest deserts in the world, over 100,000 square miles. 259,000 square kilometers, and lies on a high plateau at 3,000 feet, 914 meters.
What road in the United States was known as the National Road?
The Cumberland Road, also known as the National Road, was the first federally funded road in the United States. Though construction began in 1811, the Cumberland Road was not completed until 1852, stretching 800 miles. 1,287 kilometers, from Cumberland, Maryland, to Vandalia, Illinois. The road was built to allow settlers to traverse the Appalachian Mountains and settle in the West. With the advent of the automobile, the road was paved, and in 1926 became part of U.S. Route 40, which stretches across the continent.
Which advanced industrial democracy ranks last in giving? Foreign aid is calculated as a percentage of its GNP.
The United States, although giving the highest amount in dollars of any country, contributes the least amount of money in foreign assistance as a percentage of GNP, less than 0.16%.
Where is Crimea?
Protruding into the Black Sea. Crimea is a diamond-shaped peninsula attached by the Isthmus of Perikko to southern Ukraine. Though Crimea declared its independence from Ukraine in 1992, it later compromised and became an autonomous Republic of Ukraine.
Why was the Vietnam War fought, and what were some of the consequences?
After World War II, Vietnamese nationalists and communists fought the French to gain their freedom from European colonization. Ultimately, the French left Vietnam in shambles, and the former colony divided into the primarily communist-controlled North and the pro-West forces in the South. The United States initially was involved in the war to help its ally France regain control of the colony by sending in advisors and aiding in military supplies. Forces in the South saw the chance to gain American assistance, and they convinced various U.S. administrations to assist in ridding the country of their enemies. In an effort to stem the spread of communism, the United States continued to support South Vietnam until the fall of Saigon in 1975. Ironically, during the height of the Vietnam War in 1970, while Communist Vietnamese were being portrayed as a threat to the American way of life, President Richard Nixon and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger were courting the largest, most radical communist country, the People's Republic of China, to extend relations with the West. China had been funding and supporting militarily Vietnamese resistance against both French and American forces for decades. The American occupation of Vietnam lasted from 1962 to 1975. In 1975, Saigon was overrun by communist forces, and the country was eventually unified under one communist regime. The aftermath and legacy of the war in Vietnam was the destabilization of and genocide in neighboring Laos and Cambodia, which cost millions of lives during the upheaval of the 1970s, as well as the displacement of millions of Vietnamese, some of whom emigrated to the U.S. as boat people.
Where is the Jutland Peninsula?
The Jutland Peninsula extends north from Germany and is home to the country of Denmark.
Where has 1/3 of the population of Suriname emigrated to since 1975?
Suriname was a Dutch colony until it gained independence in 1975. Since 1975, approximately 200,000 of its residents have emigrated to the Netherlands.
What is a fossil?
The outline of the remains of a plant or animal embedded in rock is called a fossil. Fossils are formed when a plant or animal dies and becomes covered up by sediments. Over time, the layers compress the remains, which are then embedded into the rock.
How did the bikini get its name?
In 1946, the United States began to test atomic weapons on the Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands. It was also in the late 1940s when the two-piece bathing suit made its debut and took its name from the intensely publicized Bikini Atoll.
How much pressure does the atmosphere exert upon us?
Average air pressure is 14.7 pounds per square inch, 10,335.6 kilograms per square meter, at sea level.
Where is the Putrid Sea?
The Putrid Sea, also known as the Savash Sea, lies to the east of the Isthmus of Perico, between Crimea and Ukraine. It is a swampy area of salty lagoons.
Who are the Maori?
The Maori are the indigenous inhabitants of New Zealand. Around the 9th century, the Maori arrived in New Zealand from other Pacific islands. In 1769 there were over 100,000 Maori, but their population decreased significantly to 40,000 by the end of the 19th century, due to European colonization. In the 20th century, the Maori population has expanded to 632,000 in New Zealand, with another 73,000 living in Australia. Maoris now comprise 15% of New Zealand's population.
What is the most populous country in the world?
China is home to more than 1.32 billion people, which means that 1 in every 5 people on the planet is Chinese. India, the second most populous country, has 1.13 billion people and is expected to surpass China's population sometime before 2050. Both countries have much larger populations than the third largest country, the United States, which is home to 304 million people.
What is the busiest airport in the world?
The busiest airport in the world, in terms of numbers of passengers annually, is Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, with over 78 million passengers annually. The next busiest is Chicago, Illinois' O'Hare International Airport, with 70 million passengers per year.
Which countries are not members of the United Nations?
While almost every country in the world is a member of the United Nations, there is a short list of countries that are not members: Taiwan, Tonga, and Vatican City.
Where are the prairie provinces?
The grassy, central Canadian states of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta are called the Prairie Provinces.
Where does it rain the least?
Northern Sudan's Wadi Halfa, which is in the Sahara Desert, receives an average of less than 1/10 of an inch of rain per year. That's hardly a drop at the bottom of a bucket.
What is the world's largest lake?
The Caspian Sea, which is really a lake, is the largest lake in the world. It is surrounded by Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Iran, and Azerbaijan, and is over 143,200 square miles, 370,888 square kilometers, in area. The second largest lake, Lake Superior in North America, is a mere 31,700 square miles, 82,103 square kilometers.
How big is Russia's Lake Baikal?
Lake Baikal, located in southern Siberia, holds 1/5 of the world's non-frozen fresh water. Lake Baikal is also the world's deepest lake, with a maximum depth of just over 1 mile, 5,371 feet, 1,637 meters. The crescent-shaped Lake Baikal is also famous for its crystal clear water and bountiful plant and animal life.
What is acid rain?
Motor vehicles and industrial activity release tons of pollutants into the air. When mixed together, the pollutants form sulfuric and nitric acids that later fall to the ground in rain or snow. This precipitation is known as acid rain. Acid rain is responsible for damaging lakes by killing plant and animal life and for killing trees around the world. Canada has been especially hard hit by acid rain caused by industrial activities in the United States.
Where is the largest coral reef in the world?
The Great Barrier Reef is the largest coral reef in the world. Located just off the northeastern coast of Australia, it extends for over 1,200 miles, 1,930 kilometers. Much of the area is now protected as a marine park.
What are the Baltic states?
The three Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are so named because they lie on the Baltic Sea. These three countries became independent after the Soviet Union broke apart in 1991. Poland and Finland, which also lie on the sea, are sometimes also included as Baltic states.
How are waves created?
Waves are created by wind blowing across the surface of the water. Though waves appear to move along the surface of the water, they are simply the movement, oscillation, of water up and down due to the friction of the air. When waves occur near the shore, they may become steeper and break.
What is geographic illiteracy?
In 1989, the National Geographic Society commissioned a survey to find out how much Americans and residents of several other countries knew about the world around them. Unfortunately, American youth scored the worst. Swedes knew the most about world geography. The media subsequently reported the geographic illiteracy of the American population. Due to the attention given to this problem, geographic education has since become a greater priority for educators.
Is the permafrost thawing?
Yes, it is. In places with great areas of permafrost, such as Alaska, the permafrost has warmed to the highest level in 10,000 years. During the last 50 years, the Arctic regions have been warming to record high temperatures. During this time, Alaska's average temperature has warmed an average of 3.3 degrees above normal.
When was the last interstate highway built?
The construction of new interstate highways came to an end in 1993 with the opening of Interstate 105, the Century Freeway. In Los Angeles, 37 years after construction began on the system. The Century Freeway is an intercity route connecting the coastal community of El Segundo to Interstates 405, 110, 710, and finally 605 in Norwalk.
What is ANZUS?
In 1951, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States signed the Australia-New Zealand-United States ANZUS treaty to protect each other militarily. In 1986, New Zealand banned nuclear weapons from its country and thereafter refused to allow U.S. nuclear-powered or nuclear-armed ships to dock in its harbors. New Zealand was summarily excluded from the treaty.
Which country had the world's first legislature?
Though Iceland had been settled about 60 years earlier by the Norwegians. Iceland's parliament, the Althing, was created in 930 c. E.
Is Puerto Rico a state?
No, Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth of the United States. In 1898, the United States acquired the island of Puerto Rico from Spain. But Puerto Rico did not become a Commonwealth until 1952. Though Puerto Ricans pay no federal income tax and cannot vote for president. They are citizens of the United States and can move freely around the country. Puerto Rico is allowed one representative to the House of Representatives, but that member cannot vote. With approximately 3.6 million residents, Puerto Rico is currently the largest colony in the world.
Who owns Walvis Bay?
When Namibia gained independence from South Africa in 1990, South Africa kept control of Walvis Bay. Located approximately 400 miles, 644 kilometers, north of the South African border. The excellent harbor and deep water port of Walvis Bay was retained for 4 years. Until it was returned to Namibia on March 1, 1994.
Where did the Inca civilization develop?
In the 15th and 16th centuries. The civilization of the Incas developed in the altiplanos of the Andes Mountains. Altiplanos are high plains located among the mountains that are suitable for habitation. The Bolivian capital of La Paz is also located on an altiplano. The Inca Civilization lasted from approximately the 11th through 16th centuries.
Are kangaroos native to Australia?
Yes, kangaroos are native to Australia. Kangaroos range in size from giant kangaroos, 5 feet 1.5 meters tall, to tiny, rat-sized kangaroos, called podoroos.
What is a good way to learn where places are?
The best way to learn about places that you have heard of is to look them up in an updated atlas. An atlas is a collection of maps bound in a book. It may include additional information, such as illustrations, statistical tables, topography, and other important information about a place or places. If you like to use the internet, you may try to enter the place in the search box at your favorite search engine, and then click on the results. You will be surprised by the amount of information you can find.
Where did agriculture begin?
Agriculture simultaneously began in what is known now as the Middle East, Fertile Crescent, the Yangtze River region of southern China, the Yellow River region of northern China, sub-Saharan Africa, South-Central Andes near modern-day Peru, Bolivia, and Chile, central Mexico, and the eastern United States.
Does the Earth always rotate and revolve around the Sun at the same speed?
No, the Earth's revolution around the Sun and rotation on its axis are not perfect. Its daily rotation may vary by approximately 4 to 5 milliseconds, and is slowing down at a rate of 1 millisecond each century, due to tidal friction. Additionally, the axis wobbles slightly, and the length of revolution around the Sun varies by a few milliseconds.
Why is Cabinda separate from Angola?
Cabinda, though a province of Angola, is separated from the bulk of Angola by approximately 25 miles. 40 kilometers, of the Democratic Republic of Congo. In 1886, Belgium gave this tiny area to Angola. Cabindans have recently taken up arms against Angola in the hope of obtaining independence.
How many people live in Moscow?
Approximately 10 million people call Moscow home. Nearly 5 million people live in St. Petersburg, Russia's second largest city.
Why are there so many discrepancies in the world records of weather?
The discrepancies in the data reflect the length of time that we use to measure weather phenomena. Some records were set by observing the weather over decades. Others only occurred during the span of a few years or months, or even hours or minutes.
What is the difference between Islam and a Muslim?
Islam is a religion and a Muslim is a person who is a follower of Islam.
How much has the magnetic North Pole moved?
Since it was documented in 1831 by James Ross to be slightly north of 70 degrees north latitude, it has moved to north of 80 degrees north latitude at an average rate of more than 24.9 miles, 40 kilometers, per year.
What were the results of the 2006 National Geographic Roper Public Affairs Geographic Literacy Study?
The 2006 study is the latest in a series of surveys commissioned by the National Geographic Society, with the most recent previous way being conducted in 2002. The countries that scored highest in the poll were Sweden, Italy, and France. The United States and Mexico scored the lowest.
What is Polynesia?
Polynesia consists of islands in the region bounded by Hawaii in the north and New Zealand in the southwest. The region includes the countries of Samoa, Tonga, and Tuvalu. Also located in this area is the colony of French Polynesia, which includes Tahiti and 117 other islands and atolls.
How did the ancient Romans get water to their cities?
The ancient Romans and Mesopotamians built aqueducts to transport water between a source and areas where it was needed for agriculture or civilization. The Roman system was very extensive, and was constructed throughout its empire. Some portions of these ancient aqueducts are still in use. Today, modern concrete-lined channels transport water hundreds of miles. The most extensive aqueduct systems in the world today are those that bring water to southern California from the Colorado River in the east and from the Sacramento River in the north. How did the Romans get water to their cities? The Romans built aqueducts to transport water between a source and areas where it was needed for agriculture or civilization. Some portions of these ancient aqueducts are still in use. Today, modern concrete-lined channels transport water hundreds of miles. The most extensive aqueduct systems in the world today are those that bring water to southern
How did Brazil become a Portuguese colony?
Most of the present-day country of Brazil was east of the line drawn in the Treaty of Tordesillas. so it became Portuguese territory in 1506. Brazil's official language is Portuguese, making it the only Portuguese-speaking country in South America.
What world weather records does the United States hold?
The United States claims the world's highest surface wind, 231 miles 372 kilometers per hour peak gust in New Hampshire. World's greatest average yearly precipitation, 472 inches 1,200 centimeters in Hawaii. And the world's heaviest 42-minute rainfall, 12 inches 31 centimeters in Missouri.
What started the fighting in Chechnya?
Chechnya was once part of a Soviet republic called Chechen-Ingush. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Chechen-Ingush was divided into two internal republics, Chechnya in the east and Ingushetia in the west. Though the Chechens declared independence in 1992, Russia did not approve, and invaded Chechnya in 1994. The Russians crushed the rebellion, killing thousands of Chechens. However, the region is still in a state of unrest today.
What is geologic time?
Geologic time is a time scale that divides the history of the planet Earth into eras, periods, and epochs from the birth of the planet to the present. The oldest era is the Precambrian, which began 4.6 billion years ago and ended about 570 million years ago. Next came the Paleozoic era, which lasted from 570 to 245 million years ago. Followed by the Mesozoic era, from 245 to 66 million years ago. We're now living in the Cenozoic era, which began 66 million years ago. The Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras are each divided into periods. Additionally, the Cenozoic era is divided into even smaller units of time called epochs. The last 10,000 years, the time since the last significant ice age, is called the Holocene epoch.